Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Painful Spooncast, the best place for getting your Pokemon TCG information spoon-fed to you. Today, it is myself, Wyatt, and Keegan back with a special guest this time. We have Steven here. Steven, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Steven. I have been playing Pokemon for about a year now, little over, because I took a break when I first started. Um, and I like Flareon, apparently.
Nice.
And apparently, we both like Flareon.
Yeah, you guys were both Flareon gamers this weekend, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. First and foremost, want to thank everyone who supported the pilot podcast last week. Really mean a lot to us. I know I had some private messages from both Spoon members, or our YouTube members, I should say, as well as comments from reading the comments from the intro or the initial pilot. So thank you all so much for the support. We greatly appreciate it. Yeah, with all that being said, let's kind of get on into this. Wyatt, talk to us a little bit. I guess both of you, since you both kind of came to the conclusion of Flareon, let's talk a little bit about Flareon and why, in your eyes, was it the play for Milwaukee?
Yeah, so I'll still give a lot of credit to Steven, because he played Flareon to Atlanta regionals where we both were at. Granted, I think you could agree, Steven, that list was very much more Flareon Unga Bunga oriented rather than the whole EV package, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I still was in a position to day two with it. I was 4-2 when I just kind of like got lost in the sauce and punted versus a Raging Bolt player.
Hmm.
But if I manage to like win that one, I can draw into day two, and then like I'm 5-2-1, so it's not like ideal going into day two, but it's still like a fine performance. Um, the big difference between that list and the one we played to Atlanta was obviously the omission of Sylveon from the Atlanta list, but
Hmm.
also we were a little more scared of walls going into that
Hmm.
event because it was the first Western regional or Western major since Fukuoka, I think is how you say it, and which one it was,
Hmm.
Fukuoka, um, where Walls did have a pretty good performance, and it was like it seemed like it had a viable matchup into Terra Box, which was the deck going into that weekend. People hadn't really like once we were at the event, they had just kind of figured out like unfair stamp Badu is kind of enough to beat Terra Box,
Yeah.
but like going into it, there were rumblings of it, but not quite anything more than that. And so, since we were scared of walls, we played the single prize Jolteon. And to hit into Dragapult, we ended up playing Victini and Gravity Mountain.
Mm.
So, uh, those were like the main differences going into Atlanta, or going into Milwaukee. We kept with Prime Catcher, which I really enjoyed playing in the Flareon style decks. Um, but we added Sylveon because that plus Clefairy do just make your Dragapult matchup really, really clean.
Sure. Absolutely. Plus, Angelite is just a broken attack for like the Gardevoir matchup, as well as possibly, I mean, not really to say that Charizard's much of a relevant deck anymore, but really I guess any sort of like stage two deck, you could just set your opponent's back so far behind with just being able to Angelite them and then proceeding to just Magical Ribbon, I believe is the name of the first attack.
Magical
Magical
Charm.
Charm,
Charm.
sorry. I knew it was something magical.
Charm.
Very
Yeah.
close, but not quite.
Yeah.
Um,
No. You're absolutely right though. That's one of the things. Like even because we all experienced a ladder reset recently, and one of
Hmm.
the favorite decks in Pokeball tier is just Charizard Pidgeot.
oh, yeah.
And before when we were playing the deck, we had to do some like weird things like Volcanion in Gravity Mountain to
Mm.
KO a Charizard, but now you just like bring up one of their Charmanders, Angelite the Charizard and Pidgeot back, and they just kind of look at you like you've committed a grave crime
Yeah,
against
you've
them.
committed like arson,
Yeah,
man. What the heck?
Yeah, you lit their board on
For
fire.
real.
quite
Um,
literally.
they're the ones really experiencing some burning darkness there.
Okay.
Um,
So I was gonna ask in as a person who hasn't really experienced many Noctowl decks in this format, I've kind of like put most of my testing towards like a bit of Dragapult, a bit of Gardevoir, a little bit of uh, variations of the Poltzard list has been my like focal points. So as someone who is like taking on a Noctowl deck for the first time, what's the what would you say or what would you argue is like a benefit in comparing Flareon like comparatively to like Terrabox? Like what's the upside to Flareon playing that into a field comparatively to like Terrabox, for instance? We know they're both like Noctowl based decks, of course. I imagine Terrabox, of course, is definitely more of like a toolboxy deck. But what would you say, or what would you argue to someone who's maybe debating between picking up Terrabox or picking up like Flareon for the first time at like their locals, testing it out for like a cup, as like some of the merits to playing Flareon in the current meta?
Yeah, so one of the big things I found, especially with like the initial like beatdown like focus style Flareon deck, was one your energy cards stay in play, so it makes it a lot less fragile when it comes to getting like Ionoed or unfair stamped. Um, that is like that was one of the initial draws that I had for the deck. But the actual one is how good your pull matchup actually
Okay.
is. Even if they're playing something like Unfair Stamp, um, they have less turns where they're able to time it. Um, so when you set up a Sylveon, you're able to like Angelite something, set them back. You're able to then follow it up with a Magical Charm the next turn, and they might just like not have a good response into you. Uh, like I was saying, your energy cards stay in play, so it means that like while you're advancing your board state, chipping away at them with like Charm and Angel Light, you're able to like if you get Ionoed and they countercatcher you, all of a sudden you're in a situation where a single Crispin just gets you out of your predicament. Whereas the like the Terrabox deck, you're going to have to like find an energy or like a switch card, which I don't believe they play. I think it's just Turo. So there's a chance that like a Iono or a Unfair Stamp plus Budu just kind of locks them
Sure.
in general for a turn, which is all Dragapult really needs to pull ahead in those matchups. And then it could even buy them multiple turns. Whereas like Flareon doesn't really have that problem. And it's also just Angelite is probably the second best attack in the format.
Okay.
Like number one has got to be Phantom Dive, but Angelite is just so powerful at like removing either like your opponent's threats from the board, or their engine cards from the board, or some combination if their board is really fragile. One of the like I played against Terrabox in the last round of Milwaukee, and I most I was talking a little bit about it with someone, and we realized like I probably could have chased a Pikachu instead of a Hoot Hoot with my magical charm, but like they benched two Hoot Hoots and an Ogerpon, and ended up getting the Hoot Hoots Angel Lighted back into the deck,
Mm.
and they just kind of like struggled to really play the game, and I was in a position where I should have been able to close out from there. I didn't, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but that's just like the power of Angel Light is really the main draw to the deck, and then getting access to Clefairy as well. In my head, it's almost like a bigger Terrabox deck where like one, you do get to play Prime Catcher, which is a big draw.
Sure.
I know not every list opts for the catcher. A lot of them are opting for Terra Crystal. Some of them, even before this event, there was a decent amount of unfair stamp. But I think Prime Catcher in a deck like this, where your crispening is just so powerful, and you have like ways to consistently find your prime catcher,
Sure.
um, it does a lot. Uh, so you have both like the HP total of something like a stage one EX, and then you have the same kind of like versatility in attackers um, as something like Terrabox.
Yeah, just having I feel like having two answers to Dragapult specifically whenever you have a Clefairy play, either Clefairy itself or using Sylveon against Dragapult, if they ever do actually manage to set up a Dragapult against you, is a pretty powerful selling point. Also, let me just say, Magical Charm is absolutely broken attack. I didn't realize that attack, like how good it was until I actually played it at a challenge this past Monday, just to kind of like test out the deck. And man, oh man, it's a really under. I feel like it's an underrated attack in the format too. Just it kind of gives me like Rolling Hider vibes with Gudra V Star way back in the day. But yeah, no, we can definitely dive more into Flareon kind of really here as a whole. I know you both played it. Do we have a preference on which one of you guys want to go first? Kind of talk about your tournament run more or less.
Real quick, back in to reference the difference between one of the benefits for Flareon compared to the like Terrabox deck is uh, we opt like second with the deck blind into this field, and because you play like the boosted Evo Eevee, you do have this like potential insane high roll where you're turn one burning charging your opponent. Um, and those games are very easy to like snowball and like close out. Um, you also have like because of the like high Crispin count, which like that deck does also play. Um, but you're also in on a Briar, which that deck isn't. You by just simply taking a knockout, going second with something like a Fan Rotom, you can put yourself in a really good position for the rest of the game into a lot of these like two prize beat stick mirrors. So that it is one advantage is you are good on both sides of the coin flip, which I think is a hallmark of a very powerful deck um, in any given meta. Because I played Terrapagos Dusk Noir to Louisville, and let me tell you, when that deck did not go first, it did not feel very good.
Sure. Absolutely.
This is very true. I also played that deck to Louisville and also wanted to explode.
I played that deck too.
But yeah,
It was a great deck.
all right. I think we can go ahead and get into our runs now. I figured I'd start with mine just because A, it's shorter and less eventful. And then we can get into yours after, Steven, since you made a little bit deeper run than I did.
Hey Wyatt. Hey Steven. You guys were both at the Milwaukee Regional Championships this past weekend. Is that correct?
That is
That is
correct.
true.
As we established a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
By chance, if you don't mind me asking, what sleeves did you guys end up using for the event?
I myself had some black color in-game TCG.ca sleeves on my Flareon deck. I'm not quite sure what Steven had. I believe it'd be something similar.
I was using the it's like a lilac, I believe. I'm not sure the official name of it, but they are also end games.
Hmm.
I wanted to
Okay.
have a little flair to it. Complement the Sylveon portion of it. I had the red end games when I was playing solo Flareon, but you know, to honor the new addition to the deck, had to show out a little bit.
That's
True,
fair.
true.
I saw that red. I want to try it next. That's going to be my next end game CA sleeve myself that I'm going to be picking up. And
I love the lilac purples. They
yeah,
are probably my favorite of the endgame sleeves that are out right now. And not just because I'm going to be playing Sylveon going forward
sure.
for this foreseeable future. Just in general, I really like the color. The sleeves kept me good through the whole event. Big fan.
Nice, right on. Well, yeah, guys, if you this is your cue, if you guys want to go check out Endgame, uh, by all means, we'll have a link I'm sure Noah, he had a link on the in the comments, or not in the comments, in the description of the video, but it was also on the art thumbnail. Feel free to check out Endgame. Use code Spoon at checkout, get 10% off, and try out some pretty good quality sleeves, if I do say so myself. How many times did you guys have to re-sleeve in the event? Did you guys even re-sleeve at all?
I didn't change a single sleeve. I only played for one day, but didn't have
Fair.
to.
Yeah.
Had nothing go wrong on me.
What about you, Steven?
I always resleeve between day 1 and 2. I've done that for. I started playing other card games when I was 15, so it's just like a little bit of superstition for me. I always change between day 1 and 2, but my sleeves are. They would have 100% lasted me through the event. I normally when I have them on for playtesting, I don't have to re-sleeve for like honestly until it's time to actually go play in a real event.
Right.
They stay in great condition the entire time.
Fair enough. All right. Well, good to know, guys. All right. Well, with that being said, let's dive on in. I know Wyatt, I think, was about to go off with his I guess his journey throughout Milwaukee and how he ended up doing. So Wyatt, let's go ahead. Let's take a little crash course through your day at Milwaukee and how Flareon ended up paying out for you.
Yeah. So leading up to the event, I kind of teetered a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I've been on playing Flareon for probably about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before the event. I'd been going through like the stamped v sparkling crystal dilemma in my head, trying a couple of the different lists from the more recent events, and then kept
Yeah, I believe
hitting.
you sent. I
No, go
believe
ahead.
you sent. Why would anyone ever play an A spec other than Stamp? I hate it so much.
You're
At
right.
one point, buddy.
Yeah. This occurred after I hit one too many Gardevoirs and could not beat that deck for the life of me. So
Sure.
what I did find out through Steven is that your Guardian matchup gets a little bit better when you have access to a Prime Catcher. Does tend to help. But yeah, so ended up switching back onto this deck a couple days before the event. Got the list from Steven and was like, listen, just give me the sauce. If it was either this or I was gonna fall down the course of Guardy or Frostlast Monkey Dory, and we don't want to see how that regional run would have went. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'll just go ahead and get in. Round 1 of the day, I did hit a slow Dragapult. Very easy matchup for the deck. Basically, they play no rare candies, nothing. So you just keep Angelite locking them out of their Dracloaks and then taking knockouts in between, and they never get to establish a board. So that was a pretty easy win for me round 1. Round 2, I hit a player on Goldango to Dunsparce. Goldango is the freest matchup for this deck ever. It should never lose it. You just take the first prize card. They'll take 2. You take another 2 because you're KOing them with Burning Charge because you do 130 times weakness with the Flareon. And then they'll take 2, and then you just Flareon Briar them back and win the game. It's very, very easy. The hardest part of the matchup that I would find out later in the day is actually having access to your Flareons. Because sometimes if you prize a Flareon or something, it can get a little bit hairy. But took a win there in round 2. And then round 3, I hit Maxwell Johnson on Goldango, a former regional winner of Fort Wayne a couple years ago.
Fair.
And we had a very awesome set, I will say. Game 1 pretty convincingly. Game 2, I kind of bricked my pants off, and he won. And then game 3, I got the Flareon attack. He got the return knockout. And then I prized my second Flareon. So, and I didn't have like immediate access to Night Stretcher to get it back. So I had to evolve my one Eevee into Sylveon to gain access to
A terror guy.
Noctowl, yes, to give myself a Terra to have access to Noctowl and such. But the good thing about that is that Maxwell only left himself with 2 Goldengos in play. So what I was able to do is evolve into Sylveon and power up Angelite and bring up his Genesect and Angelite back in both of his Goldengos after Ionoing him pretty low, and just eventually won the game from there slowly. So not how that matchup's supposed to go, but made it work. Got there eventually. And then my heart sank a little bit as I was in the bathroom after round 3 and round 4 pairings went up. I looked at my phone and it said, "Hey Wyatt, you're playing Brent Tonneson at table 50 something." And I'm like, "Hello? Who now?" So go sit down against the wet goose himself. We chat a little bit. I get my butt kicked game 1 because it's Guardy, and he is the best Guardy player. Even though Prime Catcher makes the matchup better, still going to be an uphill battle. Shout out Jamming Tower, though. Game 2, managed to squeak that out. And win game 2 by using Jamming Tower to KO his Scream Tail after he had put 200 on it. And Fan Rotom knock out a Cleffa for the last 2 prizes. And then game 3, I narrowly almost get there, but he does a very cool play where I go down to 1 prize. He Ionos me to 1, monkeys 60 damage over to my Flareon, and hits it for 190. So it's left with 20 HP left, and I've got a Fan Rotom with 50 damage on it. And so next turn he's going to be able to take the 3 prize cards, and I don't quite find the card I need off of the Iono, plus a couple draws after that. So do take a loss there, end up at 3-1. And then round 5, I had a Terra Box and kind of just get Giga sacked. I win game 2, or he wins game 1. Game 2, I Angelite back in both of his Hoots, and then Magical Charm his Wellspring in the active, so that it doesn't do anything, because that makes it do 100 less damage to my bench as well. So basically he can choose to put 3 energy on his guy and snipe a guy for 20, and that's about it. So I win that game, he just scoops it up. And then game 3, he gets to go first yet again, and kind of just ran me off the board. I kind of bricked, didn't really see a whole lot. So take another loss there. I'm at 3-2, not feeling great. Round 6, my opponent flips over a Dreepy, and I'm feeling pretty good. Not gonna lie. Going second, flips over Dreepy. I've got the turn 1 Fan Rotom knockout. And then they do the stamp thing, take it Itchy Pollen me again. I draw out of it, get the Angelite on both of his Dracloaks, and then game 1 kind of just starts to spiral out. He sticks a counter catcher on a Noctowl after an Iono, and I can't quite get out of it. And he does the Holt Dustnor thing of just blowing things up and taking a few too many prize cards on 1 turn. So I lose that one, and then game 2, I do not draw out of the stamp. I get stamped, and that basically ends the game. So, unfortunately, lost there, so I end up at 3-3. After that, though, I decided to keep playing it out. Hit round 7, hit another Golden Go. We do trade in the set. I win a game, he wins a game, and then I close it out with the knockout Briar line. Game 2, I just prized a Flareon and my second fire, and just had a tough time because I decided to Ultra Ball Wave Trumpet like a dingus. And then round 8, I hit a Joltik Box, Indiana local, Dakota. I haven't actually played him in Pokemon ever before, but I've played him against him in Lorcana before.
Oh, nice.
So this was a bit odd to be meeting him for the first time at a regional championships. But yeah, I do end up squeaking out the set there against Dakota. Very good games, but the Flareon deck just you can kind of, it's the same thing with your Raging Bolt matchup. You just kind of can up trade at some point in the late game. So end up going 5-3, get 327th place for a top 512.
Neat.
So yeah, not too upset with the performance, but definitely could have been better. But yeah, Steven, I will pass it on over to you.
Yeah. So I started my day going through, giving some iron hands, these hands. So round one, I hit a deck that I know you're a pretty big fan of, Keegan. I hit Future Box.
Yeah, baby. Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, I contributed to your prediction of it doing well, not happening.
Okay.
So I did have a brain fart in the middle of the match as we start like playing our game,
Fair.
because 2 nights, I think it was like Thursday night, Wednesday or Thursday night. It was Wednesday night. I decided to put the Briar back in the deck because it had been cut for a decent amount of time from the 60 to give you a good matchup into Joltik Box. So what it does in that matchup is it lets you KO the Joltik with a Flareon, take another 2-prize KO going around their Pikachu, and then they'll go up 2 to 3 in prize cards, and then you have access to either counter or prime catcher for the last 2 prizes or 3 prizes combined with a like a Flareon and the Briar. So as I'm playing this matchup out, he takes a 1-prize knockout on me, and my brain goes, wait, how am I supposed to Briar him? And then I just kind of sat there for a second and went, wait, I can just run him over. And I proceed to do that for the first game. I stick like an Iono on him, put him under a jamming tower, that kind of thing. So he can't be moving his energies, and we wrap it up and go to game 2. From there, he whiffs retreat because he researches, doesn't have access to an Arvid, and opens the hands, I believe. And then I just burning charge the hands, and I do it again, and we call it a match from there. We go into my next 2 rounds. I hit Joltik boxes, and I also actually hit Dakota, which is unfortunate that he hit both of us.
So funny.
Yeah. And unfortunately, going into game 3, we were running low on time, and he prizes his future booster capsule in game 3, opens an Iron Hands, so no way to retreat out of it and get into a Joltik. I announced Burning Charge on it. He Crispins, does some stuff, passes back to me, and he attached a Bravery Charm to the Iron Hands. Jamming Tower comes down off a Knock Towel, and I Burning Charge it again for the KO, powering up yet another attacker. So I'm set to go for the game, and I'm looking at his board. It's 2 Pikachus, a Miraidon, and in theory, he's going to have to bench a Fez to, keep playing the game. And then he goes to draw, or I draw my 2 prize cards. I, look over at his board, and there's an Iron Hands with 100 or 260 damage on it sitting in the active. And he's drawn his card for turn. So unfortunately, that results in a DPL because the Iron Hands was knocked out thanks to the Jamming Tower, and he just didn't really notice it. And I'm not sure if I said Burning Charge for knockout. I might have just said Burning Charge, but I had announced the Jamming Tower going down, and he just didn't really, I think, register what was going on with it, and unfortunately there is gives up the 2 prize penalty, does his turn, KOs me, and then I just gust his Miraidon for the last 2. So a little bit unfortunate there. He would have most likely had to bench another 2 prizer to play the game, which would have been a clean 6 for me. Or I even would have potentially had a turn to just hit a Pikachu and Iono him low if he's not benching things to protect himself from that. So really a tricky situation for him to play out of, but unfortunately didn't even get the chance.
All right. Side note, before you continue, I am just going to say I would love, I know Noah, he does a great job editing our podcasts. I would love for him to create the one I can't remember the exact meme. I think it's Jesus like shaking hands with Jesus, and it's like it's like one hand it's like Wyatt York, and then the other one it's like Steve, and it's like you both shaking hands, and it's like beating Dakota at the Milwaukee Regional Championships. I feel like
Sure.
that would be an incredible meme. But
Yeah.
but nonetheless,
Um,
that's all good. So go
yeah.
ahead. That was round 3. Is that right, Steven?
Yep. So then we go into the next one. I hit a Gardevoir player. I unfortunately did not make a Sylveon in game 1. So he takes that one. We go to game 2, and one of the other like cool lines that the Briar gives you is against these Gardevoir players. They really like unlike a Dragapult where they can kind of like avoid going down to 2 until they're like ready to win the game. Gardevoir can't really do that. They do just like a little too much damage. They need to like aggressively prize trade because of how like threatening Sylveon is against their board. It puts them in like a little bit of an awkward position. So they're forced. Their best way to beat you is to go down 2-2 and have something like a Screamtail in the active and Iono Yulo. Sometimes they're able to stay on like 4 prize cards remaining, but that really like requires you to not have access to Angelite, which isn't always like a thing that they can play to. So he goes, like I said, I dropped game 1. We're in game 2. He takes a knockout. Prize cards are 2-2. I flip the script and hit the Briar. And we go to game 3, and I proceed to just kind of run him over with Angelite. Next round, we hit a Joltik box, and from there, it's another really clean win. I believe I 2-0'd him. I'm not too sure. At some point, the 3 Joltik box players did kind of blur together. So we do win that one, and now we're 5-0 headed into round 6, where I hit Brandon Salazar. I believe he's been playing for a while. I'm not too sure on like some of the like legacy players, but he's playing Gardevoir. Similar thing. I struggled to really make a Flareon or to make a Sylveon. We go to game 2. There's like 17 minutes left on the clock when he checks with the judge. I take like a KO on his board. He fezzes and whiffs a supporter on turn 2, looking at like 13 cards total between 1 and 2. And from there, we just kind of go to the next one. And I did an unfortunate thing, which is I evolved a Noctowl with no Terra Pokemon in play. So at that point, we just kind of have to play to force a tie at the end of the game, especially since a tie does lock me for day 2. And we managed to squeak out the draw there as my board is... Like I was saying, they really struggle to take like these aggressive 4 prize turns. We have a situation where basically like we're even 4-4 on prize cards. He's punched a Flareon, and I just go, all right, you are turn 3. I will retreat into a Hoot Hoot. It is your turn. And they don't play boss, and they only have counter catcher. So there's not much he can do from that board position.
Yeah.
So we go to game 3, or not go to game 3. So we go to the next one where I hit Jose Torres, who I believe he did well in Atlanta. Really nice guy. So game 1, don't really remember too much between games 1 and game 2. We just play like a longer set. But when we go to game 3, I prize both of my fan Rotoms as I go into my deck. So I have 2 nest balls, and the first one gets me an Eevee. We just kind of look at each other. My next one gets me a Hoot Hoot, and we both kind of just start laughing a little bit. And then we play a pretty long game. We're going into turns, and he's playing Pult Noir, not like Slow Pult or anything. And we end up in a situation where he's playing to win the match, so he Dusclops, my Sylveon going down, putting me down to 1 prize card remaining, and taking the KO with Blood Moon or Saluna on my mostly 2 prize board, where I believe I had a Clefairy powered up or something. And I draw for my turn after he Iono'd me low, and my draw for the turn is Boss's Orders. So the luck balanced itself out from prizing double fan Rotom to top decking boss at the end of the game. What can you do? So I steal that set, and now I'm 6-0-1 going into the last round, where I hit Christian Labella, who you guys might know won the event and did not drop a series the entire weekend. So he talked about this match on the Shift Gear podcast a little bit, because we both agree that it is pretty unfavored for Raging Bolt. Unfortunately, I opened a 2-prizer, which is kind of the death nail. It means that he can like aggressively prime catcher me going first, game 1, and then game 2 he has just a clean 3 energy KO onto my Fez that I opened, and we pack it up and get an early dinner, you know, because those were a quick 2 games. So then we go into round 2, day 2, where I end up hitting a slow pull where we split games. I hit a Golden Go Dragapult, which unfortunately for that player, we talked about it after, it is as close to an auto loss matchup as possible. Both of our main attackers do one-shot his main attackers, with very little counterplay, unfortunately.
Fair. Yeah.
And so as long as I don't brick, it is pretty favorable. And realistically, I did brick in game 2, and I probably should have won anyways, because I took a KO with Fan Rotom. He responded, and I promoted a boosted Evo Eevee, because in my head I'm taking this like Dragapult vulnerable card off the board. That'll keep me safe from like a 3-prize turn back. But I should have just promoted my Colorful Friends Eevee, since I had already taken a knockout. That would have put me up. I would have Colorful Friends. He would have been up 4-5, but that doesn't really matter, because I have the Briar to play to at the end of the game. And honestly, that was a little bit of inexperience with the Briar getting added back into the list so late, as well as like just a little bit of inexperience. I did play a lot going into the event, but you can always play more games, right? That way you don't make those small kind of blunders. The next round, I hit Rowan Stavinoff, who also sponsored by Endgame. Same with Christian. Shout out to both of them. Rowan and I play a long game 1. Unfortunately, he bricks me on an Iono to 4, where my Iono is 2 energy cards, a Briar, and a Hoot Hoot. And I don't even have a way to get into a Clefairy. So I like Magical Charm a Dragapult and then get my head caned in for it. Because normally when you do that, you do need to be taking a knockout. We go to game 2, and I did proceed to sack him here a bit. I did brick on my opening. I opened Hoot Hoot, Hoot Hoot, and a EVEX. And so I attached to the EVEX because I have a Sylveon in my hand. And in theory, like, potentially can get out of it, but this small mistake, which I don't think really did anything, like that attach doesn't do too much for me. Basically, he starts buttooing me, and I attach to a Hoot Hoot 2 turns later, after I've been pollened twice. I then proceed to announce the attack Triple Stab.
I also did that this weekend.
Yeah. I roll 2 heads, and then I ask him, would you like to flip the last one? He says no. I'm like, all right, cool. I roll it, hit a heads, take a prize card. We're both laughing, and he says like, "Oh, I think I still win this game." And I go, "I would be very surprised if you didn't." So unfortunate, famous last words. We go, or he takes a 2-prize KO, and I respond with he KOs both my hoots. I respond with a nest ball off the top to get out of it. Crispin was my prize card, and so I make a I make a Clefairy with a Sylveon, take a 2-prize KO. He responds with counter catching up my Clefairy, putting 60 damage on my Sylveon, and unfortunately for him, that Hoot took a prize card, and I go down 2-3. And part of the reason I was bricking was there was a Briar in my hand. Now, I had a Hoot in play already that I had drawn, but it was the 80 HP Hoot, so I had not benched it on the turn I drew it because I was a little scared of getting counter catchered, I believe, or like boss stalled on it while we were just draw passing. And so I benched it the turn that I made Sylveon and took the 2 prizes. But none of that matters because I just drew a Night Stretcher anyways. Stretcher back to Clefairy, Briar, and Magical Charm. We go to game 3 and don't have enough time to finish it. And we drew. Then I go into the last round and hit Raul ready on Terra Box. I talked about that matchup a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, I made some small misplays in game 1 where I had a pretty big lead, and then a pretty big misplay in game 2 where I thought I had a Glass Trumpet in my deck, and I didn't, and it messed up my line. And I could have simply just like counter or Night Stretchered back a Clefairy because I was up, or I had taken the first 2 prize cards. And I can just Clefairy him, put a Blood Moon Ursaluna on my bench. I have a Latias in play, and I can just say go. And I don't do that. And instead, I think I just pushed a 1 prizer and passed and got my head caned once again for doing something stupid. So unfortunate misplays in that round really cost me. And that put me to 7-2-3 on the weekend, which was good for a top 128. I finished 98th with the list, and it got me 80 points in a booster box, which, considering I've had a pretty rough season so far, this puts me up to like 449 championship points. I'm attending Portland and NAIC. Still have a couple locals I can bump up. If I have some good performances, we are not completely out of it after this weekend, which is a surprising situation considering the season so far for me.
Yeah, the grind for the invite is still relatively in reach. You'll have to work at it, obviously, but if you with a decent finish in Portland and a reasonable finish in NAIC, it's definitely manageable for you. So, that's awesome to see. Big congratulations to you, Steven, for taking a top 128, and to Wyatt as well for making top 512. I know a couple of our other members of Spoon Squad ended up doing pretty decent too. I think there was some that ended up making 256. Like I know Juan, I think he ended up making top 256. I think with Enzorark, if I remember correctly. I want to say Cody also made top 256 with Raging Bolt, if I understand that correctly too.
Yeah, let me briefly give. I think So it was Cody and Juan both got 256. I believe you were the highest placing Spoon Man, correct?
Yes.
Steven was.
That's what I thought. Yes. We had a couple first day 2s. We had Michael. Michael got his first day 2 with Archaladon Poison. And then Alex Weaver also got day 2. 1 card different from Juan's and Zoroark list. He chose to play second Brock Scouting over second Research because that was the list that Juan originally sent him. And
Okay.
the night before the tournament, Juan decided to cut a Brock's for a Research. And even though he did perform slightly better than Alex, he does say that he wished he kept the second Brock in the deck. So,
Fair.
I think that was everyone. I don't want to forget anybody.
Yeah,
I think that was everyone too.
We're forgetting Justin.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Justin, our resident VG player, played his first ever TCG regional and made day 2 with Joltik Box. Got 241st, so he also is top 256.
Yeah, big ups to him. Also, shout out to Juan. He's been who I've been traveling with to most of these events throughout the year. It's also his birthday today, the day of recording.
Yes.
Not the day that this is posted, but wish him a happy birthday.
Yes.
And tomorrow I'll go back to calling him a fraud because that is our friendship in a nutshell.
True, he is a fraud. That's correct. He needs to know his place.
He's been putting a lot of work in. True. Not at majors. That's not true. He has the most A2s out of anyone in the group. But
that's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. He's been putting in the work this season. I believe he's at like 580 championship points. So he is knocking on the door for a Worlds invite. He came close last year. He's been putting in the work on the Zoroark deck too. He I believe it was another top 256 in Atlanta with it.
I believe so.
So he's been really consistent with it at day 2ing.
He's the top 256 fiend. Let me tell you, man. He did that at Louisville too, I think, with Tarapago's Dusknoir.
Louisville,
he top 64.
Oh, did he top 64?
Yeah, he's a minimum record into day 2 merchant. He likes to go in at X2-1, or at Louisville, he did go in at X2. And that was the tournament that caused the big controversy about what record should top 8 and if you should be allowed to go in at X2-1. And that was also the last tournament, I believe, that X2-1 did not qualify you for day 2.
Okay.
You had to go X2 to get day 2.
You had to go X2. You could not go to X2-1 to make day 2.
This limit was paid from Juan this season. Is crazy, by the way.
Yeah, it's Terapagos,
Hydreigon, into Hydreigon, into Zoroark. It's like bro cannot play a top 6 deck ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think Zoroark is a little better positioned than people give it credit for.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
It is also, so he and I have talked about it a lot. It's one of those things where it to some degree is acknowledging your skill level, right? You go into every tournament trying to give yourself the best chance to win, right? And let's say I'm hitting someone like Rowan in day 2 or Christian at the end of day 1. And granted, I did pick up the loss to Christian, but if we're playing a 60-card Dragapult mirror, I don't think I'm gonna win that one if we play it 100 times.
No.
Maybe more than 10.
Right.
You give me 10 because that's how many times he's gonna break.
Sure.
So that's one of those things where it's you have to give yourself some kind of an advantage into these top players if you don't necessarily believe you're one yourself, or if you're close to being one, which is where I think
but
Juan
an edge never hurts.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's you do have to give yourself some way to win into these players that are better than you, and whether it's playing the same deck with a weird tech card, or if it's just taking a good deck matchup into them. My match with Jose, I definitely don't think I win if we're playing a 60-card mirror of Pult Noir. But I ended up squeaking out the win because I'm playing Sylveon.
Right.
So it's things like that, and I think he is. Granted, I will meme him because that Hydreigon deck did not have a good Drago or Raging Bolt matchup, and that was a very unfortunate weekend to be playing Hydreigon. However, I do think he is usually pretty right with a lot of this stuff, in terms of like giving himself the best chance to like do well in these events,
Right.
with simply deck selection.
Right.
Yeah. On top of that, too, I mean, if we look at Milwaukee, in terms of like the overall like ASIM cut / like top 16, just briefly looking at it, there was a couple of End Zoroark that actually ended up making ASIM. Unfortunately, both not making it into the true top 8, but both made it
think
into
one
ASIM
did.
cut at the least. No, Lucas Zane is the highest place he won. He bubbled at 9th.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, I
and then
forgot. He
Evan-
got destroyed on stream by Ian Robb because the Flareon matchup is unwinnable.
No, that was Evan.
Oh, you're right.
It was one of the
Yeah,
two. Yeah.
It was Evan. I watched that matchup last night.
Lucas lost to Makani. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when I first saw the pairings posted on Twitter, I had talked the day prior to All Blitzel because we played at Atlanta, and so he was at the table behind us when we were sitting, and I was like, "Oh, hey, what's up, dude?" And he was like, "Oh, you're not playing Raging Bolt again, are you?" And I was like, "No." And we were discussing what the other people were on, and said he was on Zoroark, and he happened to be sitting near Makani, and they were like talking. So I assumed when the things went up for the matchups for top for ASIM, I had just assumed that Makani was on Zoroark because he was hanging out with Blitzel the day before, which really makes no sense. But so when I kept seeing the updates to the bracket, I kept seeing Makani win, and I'm like, Makani beat Flareon? And then it was, Makani beat Jolted Box? Like, I could not believe it. I'm like, he's hitting the absolute terrible matchups for Zoroark in this top cut, and he's still winning. And then, while we're on the way home, is when this is happening, and the finals finally starts, and I'm like, there's not a Zoroark on my screen. That's a Dragapult. What's going on? And then I realized, oh, Lucas was the Zoroark in top 8, not Makani.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I will say I took a quick look at their records. Both Zoroark players did beat a Joltik box. However, they only played against one during that event.
I
know Juan was calling them very fraudulent.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Juan, he hit 3 Joltik box in day 1, and it was not registering the best deck in the format, Flareon, Sylveon.
Correct.
So he did not get to free roll them the way we did. Because I believe we were undefeated against Joltik box on the weekend.
I mean, I only hit 1, so...
Unfortunately for that person that I already hit him too.
Yeah, so he knew, well aware, when I flipped over an Eevee on game 1, he's like, oh, we're doing this again. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? And then Joe comes up from behind me and he goes, how'd you guys hit? He already hit Steven earlier today. And I'm like, oh, that's what he means.
Yeah.
So it was an unfortunate circumstance for him, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at the rest of the top cut, though, it is a lot of good matchups for Zoroark. It is unfortunate for Evan that he hit Ian in ASIM because that matchup is really free for Flareon.
Yes.
And you can kind of see it in their stream matchup. Ian just kind of runs him over, and there's not much Evan can do about it.
Nope.
And then... Yeah, aside from the Flareon, there's the Joltik box, but the rest of it is good matchups for the Zoroark. So if this bracket breaks a little differently, we could have seen a Zoroark in the finals.
Hey, I predicted it last week. I was ready to see it happen.
How's Zoroark's matchup into Raging Bolt? Is that relatively fine?
Yeah, it's good. It's one of those things, especially with the Defiance band being in the list. You can set up You can leave a one prizer in the active, kind of strand them on energy so they can't like gust and do a KO onto you. Like they would need to boss or Sada to have a KO, or boss and Sada to have a KO. They don't have access to either or both of those cards in the same turn. And then you have the fact that like they want to aggressively bench these 2 prize support Pokemon that are pretty weak to, or that are weak to dark. And then you have the backdraft attack from Darmanitan, which can KO an Ogerpon and leave a one prizer in the active in the mid game. So it's not a super free matchup. You do have to draw decently well. But you are, I would say Zoroark is favored in that matchup. But that also might be Juan propaganda. One of the two.
It's fine if it is
There's a
Juan
lot
propaganda.
of Juan propaganda. There's so much Juan propaganda. I fell victim to it at Baltimore last year, unfortunately.
At least I didn't say that a Blood Moon Ursaluna wearing a Hero's Cape and an Iono to 2 would cook them.
Yeah?
Which it might. That is a thing that could happen because that's a lot of energy cards they need to discard. But
that is 6 energy, and Raging Bolt struggles to hit 5 sometimes. So
yeah, no, I'm not saying it's incorrect. I'm just saying it's certainly ambitious.
Certainly is. Raging Bolt is known as the sackiest deck, I would say. They usually get there, coming from a previous Bolt player myself. So
yeah.
All right. Well, fair enough. I guess if you guys are cool with it, like at least looking into the ASIM bracket as a whole, since you both were more or less our residential Flareon experts for this episode, what are your guys' thoughts? Presuming, hypothetically, I know obviously there was one Flareon that did end up making top 8, and Ian Rob's build, which Ian's list in comparison to the list that you played this past weekend, Steven, and yours too, Wyatt, is slightly different, especially the A-Spec department. Ian actually favored the Sparkling Crystal route as opposed to playing the Prime Catcher.
Mm-hmm.
In your guys' opinion, since you guys have definitely had more experience with the Prime Catcher build, how would you feel taking your list comparatively into the field of the ASIM bracket that we saw at Milwaukee?
I would have been pretty confident with it. I don't think you have a bad matchup in the ASIM bracket. The Guardy matchup is a little scary. And obviously, the Guardy player is. Wyatt did pick up a loss to the Guardy player in top 8, right, with Brent Connison.
Correct.
So it's not the best, but it is certainly better than the matchup without it. If you slot us into Ian, or if you give, let's not slot Wyatt or I into Ian Rob's spot and say we're going to win the event or whatever, right? But let's give Ian our deck, I guess is the hypothetical I want to go with. Sure. I think he wins the event.
I don't think that's a crazy take to say. I do want to point out one thing in reference back to what you said earlier about your Guardy matchup and about my match against Brent Tonneson. You did notice, you did say it's very hard for Guardy to go down to like not going down to 2 prizes, and like so Briar is like really easily activated. One man that did find a way to do it every single game was Brent Tonneson. That man went from 3-0 all 3 games we played. Except for, of course, the one that I won, but he still jumped from 3-1. So.
So 3 is feasible. It's really like 4, which is something like Dragapult's able to do.
Right, right.
And you can put a little more pressure on the Gardevoir player by like Ionoing them to make them want, basically to give them too few resources to do some like longer like turn sequence and like kind of be forced to like chip away at you because you have a Hoot Hoot in play and you're threatening to take another Gardevoir off the board and leave them with like no real counterplay to it. So that matchup is very intricate, I will say.
It certainly is.
It reward like out of all of the matchups of the like top meta decks, if I was picking up Flareon as a new player tomorrow after I played enough games to get like comfortable with it, the matchup I think you have to practice the most is the Gardevoir matchup.
Yes.
Because even like the Gardevoir side, they can get like a little scared of Angel Light and bench lock themselves some percentage of the time, and that's what happened to Brandon in my match against him, and why he couldn't like quite finish me off was I had an Eevee in play that wasn't evolved, and he had to like bench an extra guard or Ralts so that he didn't just get Angel Lighted out of the game, and be forced to draw that way as well. And that's with me misplaying as like obviously as I did with evolving a Noctowl with no Terra in play.
Right.
So that matchup, it requires just like a lot of practice. I think if you're going to play Flareon, but I think that like, I'm unsurprised that Brent did find a way to play around the Briar and kept that in mind for all 3 games.
Yes, I made note of it after about game 2, when I finally did get to play the Briar because I forget what exactly happened, but the game I won, I did win with Briar, and he was like, "Yeah, I assumed it was in there," and I tried to play. I played around in game 1, but I couldn't quite do it game 2 because he had to go down to 2 game 2. But as you see, once they do go down to 2, it makes it a lot easier to win that matchup.
Yeah, that's like what I was saying, where it's like you can put them in positions where they are forced to go to 2,
right?
To some degree. So,
yes. And that just shows the level of the high school IQ that Brent has in the game in comparison to a typical player who's playing Gardevoir, or maybe even is picking up Gardevoir for the event, like a couple days reps. What Brent's already proven that this list is a regional championship winning list. I believe he took the exact same 60 that he used in Monterey, and he just straight up used it in Milwaukee, and then ran it back and got a top 8 with it. So it just shows the guy's definitely on a whole nother level when it comes to Gardevoir in terms of the top level. And ultimately, at the end of the day, Wyatt, you are not Josh Chevney. You can't beat Brett. So sometimes that just happens.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
No, let my boy Wyatt run it again. He's got him this time.
I'll
give him
let him
won
cook.
game 1. He bumped my area 0, and instead of discarding my Fan Rotom with 3 damage on it, I chose to keep it in play as an attacker, just in case. And if I discard that, I think I win game 1. So
all right, see, you know what you did. You'll get him next time.
Absolutely, yes. Let him cook, my man. Let him cook. Okay. Well, guys, is there anything else that we really need to do? Like, you guys want to break down the top 16 a little bit more, or what are your guys' thoughts?
I think we can jump right into talking about Portland.
I think so.
Kind of.
All right, perfect. Well, all right. Well, I guess going into Portland, it sounds like Steven's definitely going. Why are you at the moment not going? Are you like on the fence?
I am not going. I don't think. I am. Okay. What weekend? It's like last weekend of May, right?
It's the 24th, so second to last.
Second to last. Yeah. Okay. Because I'm thinking about I'm all in on NAIC format. I've played a couple games today with a friend online, running some decks, testing that. So I'm in for the long haul, working towards New Orleans. So Portland will be a skip for me.
Okay. I will say that that following Monday is Memorial Day. If you're going to Portland, so at least if I remember the calendar correctly, so you'll have that Monday off if you do end up going, possibly.
And I will be coming back to play T3's Cup that Monday.
Yippee!
I need some more championship points, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll probably be at that cup too, since it's the Memorial Day Cup. So, all right, well, good stuff. All right, well, let's look into Portland. Do you guys want to talk about like what your thoughts are with Flareon for Portland specifically, or just overall thoughts in terms of like the current meta, like as we see it after the results with Milwaukee, and what that shapes our meta for Portland to kind of look like?
Yeah, I think we can kind of give like some how meta warps based around the Milwaukee results, and then Steven, I'll let you take the lead on how Flareon might adapt to what the new meta landscape looks like. So we do see it. Gardevoir, while there was 2 in ASIM cut, did sort of take a back seat this event after winning the last 3 majors, and I think that is mainly due to the popularity and success we saw from the Joltik box. That deck simply runs over Gardevoir at insane speeds. So if we do look at the day 2 metagame for Milwaukee, there was a total of 60 Dragapult decks, 46 Joltik boxes, then still followed by Gardevoir at 38, Golden Go, then Raging Bolt, then Ins, Terra, the rest of the gang. But yeah, Gardevoir still hanging on pretty strong, but does take a downswing a little bit, which I personally would say is a good outcome for Flareon going forward. Joltik, I think, is an okay matchup for the deck as long as you hit the right lines. Dragapult should be pretty easy. Sometimes they can maneuver around you, as we figured out on Monday, Keegan, as we did hit each other in the league challenge, and I did happen to beat you with Dragapult while you were playing the Sylveon deck. Got a little lucky, but we take it.
Yep, very true.
But I think one of the big things we have to think about moving into Portland, is how Raging Bolt, the resurgence, it seems, of Raging Bolt is going to come into effect. Because I myself, as a former Raging Bolt player, know that any chance that this deck gets to slightly be on top again, players will jump back right back on it. It's a very addictive deck to play. So yeah, looks like we're going to see an uptick in Raging Bolt. Joltik box is staying pretty strong. Gardevoir on the downswing. Golden Go also seems to be sort of on the downswing, but kind of like maintaining a little bit of popularity. Zoroark is looking like a better play. So is Terrabox. So yeah, I will, Steven, let you take it away as to what your prep for Portland's looking like so far.
Yeah, so step 1 was actually just looking at Ian's list. I know I said like, oh, I think if he's playing our list, he probably wins the event. He obviously did have a pretty good list going into this weekend, right? There's also the chance that I believe the top 8 match wasn't streamed, but he could have just bricked against the Dragapult player. It is a Noctowl deck at the end of the day.
Right.
It happens sometimes. But I think that one of the big takeaways from his deck is actually the Brock Scouting. That card is insane. I put it in my deck to try it out the past couple of days, and it's been really, really good for me. Insane addition to the list.
Yeah, Brock cooks, for sure.
Yeah, that was a card going into this format that I was pretty lukewarm on, and the longer this format goes, the more times I get budded, the more interested I am in simply just Brock Scouting.
I will say briefly, leading up to the event, one of the builds I was trying out was the Crystal build, that I believe is very similar to what they ended up playing prior to. And I had a Jacques in my list, and I will say, going from that list to our list this past weekend, there were a lot of times when I missed being able to go Noctowl for Sparkling Crystal Jacques, because that just seemed like a almost anti-Badoo infinite combo we could kind of do there. But
yeah.
I will say, small note too. Looking at Ian's list comparatively to the list that you both had ended up playing too, was the inclusion of Kiernan in the deck. Being able to get up to that 310 mark with Carnelian to knock out a Gardevoir is kind of nice. Being able to one shot that immediately, or at least having that as the available option, going counter catcher into uh, Gardevoir and then using Kiernan to get to that 310 number is definitely pretty nice. It sucks that you can't get to 320. I feel like 320 would be so huge if we were able to do that with Flareon, but we're not playing like any sort of Vitality Band, Defiance Belt, or Defiance Band, or like a Vitini or slash Volcanion, any like extra damage mod besides the Kiernan. But just something I thought I'd mention
Yeah.
comparatively to you guys like playing like research or something like that, having that additional draw supporter in there.
Yeah, the second card that stuck out to me was actually the Turo.
Okay.
So it does a similar thing to the Kieran in that it like can get you out of your opponent trapping you. But one of the things is like because you're able to bench Latias in a lot of these matchups where they try to trap you, you're able to like knock towel for a Turo and then reset your knock towel, which basically just like progresses your board state or keeps your board state neutral, right? You're effectively just down a Turo in your deck. But you have access to 2 trainer cards on the next turn. You're still progressing your board state by getting back into an attack. That is what seems like after the Brock scouting, that's the other card I'm the most interested in. But if we're seeing an uptick in Raging Bolt, I don't know if there will necessarily be a downtick in Joltik box.
Right.
Like in time, right? Like what we might see in Portland, because I don't know how many majors we have. It might just be this weekend's majors because we have pre-releases next weekend. I don't know if there will be enough of an adjustment to where like Raging Bolt and Joltik box they combined for almost 20% in or no, a little over 20% in Milwaukee. I could see that number being 25% in Portland, just because Joltik box players don't really want to swap off their decks, and you see like potentially some of the like Poison or Chaladon crowd begin to jump over to Raging Bolt.
Right.
You see the Roaring Moon players move over. And stuff like that.
I sure hope the
especially
Future Hands players switch decks for their sake.
Yeah, I mean that is another deck that is unfortunate to register.
Yeah, we got looking at the upcoming events that are on the at least limitless page for what we have upcoming in terms of events up until NAIC. We have this the weekend of the 17th. We have 2 regionals as well as a special event taking place. Both Melbourne and Santiago are taking place, as well as Utrecht. I always butcher
Utrecht.
Utrecht. Yeah, Utrecht.
Utrecht.
On the 17th, and then the next week we have Portland regionals as well as another SPE in Amlanga, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then it looks like the following weekend on the 31st, we have the special event in Mongola. And then that will cover us really until we get to NAIC, because the only events that are in between are Master Ball leagues, by the looks of things.
And I did not register to go play in those, unfortunately. That honestly, that sounds like a lot of fun. I can't lie.
The Master Ball
especially
leagues are region locked, I will say.
It's not like a Champions League. That's unfortunate. Okay,
no, unfortunately not.
So yeah, with there being no majors this weekend and none until Santiago and Melbourne, I do think, honestly, I don't think there will be enough of a shift for Portland to where Flareon's not just still an insane play. looking at the meta share, like I was saying, I think you take a good matchup spread. If people, there's a chance that a lot of these like Raging Bolt players had swapped to Gardevoir since this version is a little more, I don't want to say like simple because you see someone like Brent Thomas and do well with it repeatedly, right? Like there's clearly room for this skill expression.
Sure.
But
It's
the
very
research
consistent.
build, yeah, the like research Iono build does reduce your like amount of in-game decision points compared to something like refinement Curlia, right? Like you're not making all these like micro decisions, and so I think that like there is a chance that there are some Gardevoir players who go, I just want to play an even more straightforward deck. I'm gonna Raging Bolt in Portland, you know,
Sure.
especially since there's enough time to swap between it. And it also goes from them having a pretty bad Joltik box matchup to them having almost a bye. I get the matchup data doesn't support that, but you can only get your Pikachu Slitherwing so many times before you go, maybe this matchup isn't good, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
I think something to definitely evaluate after looking at Milwaukee and heading into Portland. It just seems like initially beat stick decks in general are on the rise. It doesn't matter if it's your Bolt deck with Noctowl, as we saw that won the event. It could be even Joltik Box, which looks like made a top 4 placement, or possibly even Flareon, as we kind of look into the meta shifting for Portland, since Flareon's justified in getting the top 8, and at least according to our 2 residential
Yeah, and
Flareon
I think
players.
you like of the beat stick decks. I think Flareon is is in this really good spot where it maintains a good matchup into Dragapult and like a passable one into Gardevoir, and then you just kind of roll the other beat stick decks because they don't get to play Briar and you do. Like
Right.
it is
Very true.
It kind of just boils down to that at the end of the game. Like that is also one of the reasons I like the Prime Catcher over something like Crystal is that you can't like in Ian's build if you have to burn your counter catcher on turn or to go down to 5 prize cards, you can't really Briar and take a or use a gust. You have to be able to Briar and KO whatever's in the active, which isn't always the easiest thing in the world, especially with no Glass Trumpet. But you can in our build because you have 2 different gust effects on item cards. And that's something that is pretty powerful. I could see even adding potentially like a Terapagos because that would be good into these like other beat stick decks because with a Glass Trumpet, it's just such an efficient attacker in the mid turns.
I will
I
say
played-
one of the like more awkward lines, like especially that I encountered into the Joltik box, is you almost have to make your second attacker Clefairy because you need to have
Yeah.
access to the Terra to be the last knockout for Briar. So including an alternative attacker that happens to be a Terra, like a Terapagos, definitely makes doing the Briar lines a lot easier.
Yeah,
Maybe,
that was
maybe
something
you
else
can
I
cut,
found too.
Maybe you can cut Blood Moon for Terapagos possibly.
Okay,
'cause
let's not
that
talk
was a
crazy
difference.
now. Let's not talk
Alright.
crazy.
No. Hey, I'm just saying that was a difference between y'all's list and Ian's list. Ian was playing Terapagos. Y'all were playing the Baron. So
I think there's other cards you could cut instead. There's some like Ian was not playing an energy search, and we were.
sure.
And Blood Moon might be the best attacker in the format. You know,
Well, Ian's
it's-
energy search was a crystal, right? Like that's as effective as energy search.
kind of because it only works on Terra Pokemon. And one of the lines at the end of a game I would go for is like you have Nest Ball, Iono, and Bear. In some combination, right? Like
Sure.
or Nest Ball, Energy, and Bear. So the Noctowl with like a Terra on your bench can go get you whichever one of those pieces you don't happen to draw off Pheasantipity. And so one of the other things is like in the beat stick matchups, if you're just ahead on prize cards, like let's say you take the first 2 off a Raging Bolt, you can just go into Bear pretty proactively with or if you're about to take the first 2, you can go into bear really aggressively, which is what I did to a future hands player, where I just like burning charged and powered up a bear.
Fair.
And I took the first 2 prizes on him pretty easily with it, and from there the bear just became my second attacker. So a Terapagos also would work there, but it means that like if your opponent's bumping your stadiums, you have to have a lot more to get back into it. It's not necessarily the easiest thing compared to something like bear. But I think that like bear and Terapagos can exist in the deck. I think that like I've seen lists playing both. The crystal is kind of like an energy surge, but I think you can also get away without it, and just kind of like manage your attacks better, because you do it by giving up crystal. You do get access to prime catcher, which means that like on a turn you crispin, you do have access to a gust, even if you're ahead. So it's like you should probably be able to like find your way through a map from that point on. And I've been testing it a little bit, and it's felt that way so far. So,
well, good stuff. Well, thank you for your hindsight there, definitely on proving why you definitely have the knowledge in regards to talking about Flareon and in the regard and how it's ultimately been performing, and maybe possible hindsight for the direction of the deck to take forth heading into Portland. So, do we have any other thoughts, Wyatt, as a whole that maybe we want to discuss, or are you good to end on here?
No, I think we're looking good to head it out. I'll go ahead and shout out the socials, because we didn't do that last week, and I want to make sure people know where to find everybody. So you can find me on Twitter at trainer_Wyatt. I know, Steven, you don't have a Twitter, but where might the people find you?
At Portland. There's a chance I make a Twitter
True.
again. My old one got hacked and then they banned me, unfortunately. Yeah, other than that, I don't really have a way that people can find me. I like being an enigma to some degree,
Fair.
Hey, fair enough. And then Keegan, where might the people find you on Twitter?
Fantastic question. You guys could follow me on Twitter or X at Keegan Ives, all one word. And of course, if you haven't already, if you guys are listening to this on Spotify, I'm not for sure if this is going out yet on Spotify, but if you are, feel free to save us as a podcast on your favorites, and feel free to tune back in. We try to make these podcasts usually once a week, and we're getting somewhat of a consistent schedule set up for it moving forward, possibly. On top of that, subscribe to the Spoon Squad channel here on YouTube if you're watching it on YouTube. And, do consider becoming a member. It is only $1 a month. And with that $1 a month, not only are you supporting the content that we make here on the Spoon Squad channel, but also you get access to the podcast the whole day early. So say this podcast ends up getting uploaded on Friday normally, you would access it on Friday unless you're a member. If you're a member, you get access to it a day early.
and on
Oh,
top
no,
of that, $1 a day or $1 a month helps Noah afford name brand Skittles.
True.
Shout out to name brand Skittles. So
true.
Yeah. Speaking of shout outs, since it sounds like we're wrapping up, y'all mind if I shout out some people real quick?
No, go right
feel
ahead.
free. Go ahead and make your plug,
right.
Steven.
All right. So once again, shout out to Endgame, sponsor of the podcast. Very good people. Love them.
Very true.
Shout out to Juan, like I was saying earlier. Happy birthday to my boy. And then I want to shout out like my family and stuff. My mom was really supportive the entire run. Honestly, just in general of me playing card games and stuff. Like I said, since I was like 15, I've been traveling and competing. And she's probably my biggest supporter. I was a little down in the dumps on Sunday. I can't lie. After a couple of punts, yeah, she just texted me trying to cheer me up. Yeah, I have a great support network. Most of that's thanks to her. So big shout out to Mama
Yeah.
Martin. You
Hey,
know,
you know what? Look, it's Mother's Day this upcoming Sunday here in the States. So just shout out to moms as a whole. Happy Mother's Day if you guys are a mom. Appreciate y'all for being the goddesses that you are and bringing life into this planet. We appreciate it.
true.
So with that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So, first and foremost, thank you, Stephen, for taking some time and sharing your story with us in terms of you representing the Spoon Squad and taking Flareon all the way up to top 128 hypes. Greatly appreciate the time, sir. And
Yeah, of course.
on
Hopefully, I'll be
behalf
back
of
after Portland.
yeah. Hopefully, you'll give us a rundown of maybe a top 64 or possible higher placement. We'll see. And of course, as always, shout outs to my co-host Wyatt for being a dope little Flareon man and also beating me at Elite Challenge this past Monday. You are forever
True.
my goat. Yeah.
I
So
try my best.
absolutely. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching the Painful Spooncast episode 2. And we will see you all in the next one. You guys have officially been spoon fed.